Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today, I'm going to be talking about how liquidity pools are a really useful tool as DeFi infrastructure for builders. Before we dive into all of that exciting stuff, I want to start actually just by touching on something that's very important to all of us here. I think if there's one thing that we've learned in crypto over the last 3 months, it's the value of decentralization, transparency, immutability in finance. With the billions of dollars that have been lost of consumer funds by exchange like FTX, lending platforms like BlockFi, Celsius, Voyager, the value proposition of DeFi has been validated now more than ever. And the people in this room are the people who are really bringing this to fruition. So we're not only here to build cool tech, we're actually building a safer, more fair, more transparent world for all users of financial products and services. And I think that the work that we're doing now, I think, has always been important, and I think it's more clear than ever, like how much the world actually needs this. So with that said, I'm Jeremy Musighi. I'm CEO of Orb Collective. Orb Collective is a growth team for the Balancer DAO. Our mission is to scale global utilization of the Balancer protocol and support the resiliency and long-term sustainability of Balancer as a community and as a technology. Balancer is DeFi liquidity infrastructure. And Balancer is designed as a very flexible AMM, automated market maker, that is highly customizable. So the liquidity pools within Balancer serve as this building block, as this piece for developers that can integrate and build on top of this base layer for many different use cases. And we'll definitely dive into that. Balancer serves today as one of the top decentralized exchanges in DeFi across chains. But Balancer really, and this is what Balancer is, I think, historically most well known for. It's our exchange. But Balancer is actually way more than that. So first, I want to just kind of lay some foundational knowledge about what a liquidity pool is so that we're all on the same page. So a liquidity pool is like a stockpile of tokens that belong to separate individuals or organizations that are held together in one smart contract. And these tokens are pooled together in order to generate some yield by putting those tokens to work, utilizing them in some effective, efficient way, and creating a liquid market using those tokens. So in the case of an AMM or automated market maker, these tokens are pooled together in order to create an exchange market between different pairs of tokens. So you make it so that a buyer or seller can trade with a liquidity pool basically by providing asset A and getting asset B in return at a given price, and that price is determined by the liquidity pool algorithmically. So I'll go through a couple of examples of liquidity pools. So first example is a single asset pool. And a great example of this is a money market or like a borrow-lend protocol, such as Compound in this case. So in a single asset pool, there are lenders that are lending a token into the pool, and borrowers are borrowing that same token out of that pool. Lenders are earning interest, borrowers are paying interest, and it's one pool that consists of one token that's being used by both sides of this market. In a dual asset liquidity pool, now you open up a completely different kind of use case. So if you look at Uniswap, for example, you have a pool with two tokens. Let's say it's ETH and DAI. And this pool is maintaining a balance between the two. And as a trader, you can buy ETH from this pool by selling it DAI in exchange, or you can, or vice versa. And having this pool containing two different tokens serves as having a liquid market so that anyone who wants to trade between these two can do so at any time. And you're not, this is not like an order book, which happens in traditional financial markets, where in order for your trade to be fulfilled, another person on the other side needs to want to do the exact opposite of your trade at the same price. They want to buy what you're selling and they want to sell what you're buying. Here, in an automated market maker like Uniswap or Balancer, that you're trading against a liquidity pool, not another trader. Now let's talk about multi-asset liquidity pools. So this is a concept that was originated by Balancer, but one of the great examples of it in practice is the Curve 3 pool. And this is so first of all, a multi-asset liquidity pool is a pool that holds more than two assets and provides multi-directional liquidity between all of the assets that are held in the pool. And in the Curve 3 pool, you have a liquidity pool that contains the top three stablecoins, DAI, USDC, and USDT. And what purpose does this serve? It serves any trader who is holding one of these stablecoins or two and wants to exchange into a different one. There's a very liquid market for them to be able to do that very efficiently. On the right side of the screen here, we have the Balancer Boosted Aave USD pool, or BBA USD for short. And this serves a similar purpose to the Curve 3 pool in that it's a stablecoin pool. If you have USDT, you can trade for USDC or DAI or any of those tokens for each other. But if you look at the screen, you actually see that this pool contains 6 assets, not 3. And the reason is because this pool is actually, it consists of 3 separate 2-token pools that are nested together into one pool. So you have a pool for USDT, you have a pool for USDC, and you have a pool for DAI. And I'm going to go into this specific type of pool soon, but for now, I'll just mention that the goal of this pool and the reason why there's 6 assets instead of 3 is that these tokens are also at the same time earning a yield outside of Balancer for all of the liquidity providers, while also serving as an exchange between stablecoins. So we'll go more into that. It's a really exciting product called Boosted Pools. All right, so what can you build on a liquidity pool? Like now, hopefully you have some sense of what a liquidity pool is if you didn't already. But now let's go into what can you actually build with this, and how does this work as a building block or infrastructural piece for DeFi developers? So the first example that we'll look at is Arrakis Finance. Arrakis Finance is built on Uniswap v3. And Arrakis, what it is it's an application that reduces the complexity of liquidity provider or LP strategies on Uniswap v3 by automating them. So if you're familiar with Uniswap v3, you'd know that from v2 to v3, one thing that really changed and was very innovative is that they offered this concept of concentrated liquidity, whereas a liquidity provider in a pool, you can allocate capital to specific ranges that are trading between a token pair. And that offers a lot of opportunity to like fine-tune your strategies, and it really opens the door for like highly sophisticated players to use this technology and really like have a competitive advantage over unsophisticated players. But the problem then is, of course, that it's a lot more complex and it's a lot harder to use for your average retail investor who owns tokens and wants to generate some yield on them. So Arrakis is a solution built on top of the Uniswap v3 liquidity pools to make these what they call vaults, which are pre-programmed strategies, easy to use for anyone. Another example is Yearn. So Yearn has a lot of different vaults as well, and these vaults, similarly but different to Curve, are a way to automate like yield farming strategies usually. So if each Yearn vault is designed around a certain asset. You put the asset into the vault, and then there's a strategy that's designed for that vault that will take that asset and use it in the most profitable investment strategy available in DeFi. And these are not exclusively built on Curve. You can see here on the screen that there's an Aave vault. There are actually a couple of Balancer vaults, but there are a lot of Curve vaults. So this example right here is using the Curve 3 pool that we were looking at previously. There's a vault that uses that pool, uses the LP token of that pool to invest into the most profitable strategies. What these vaults can do basically is they could use the LP token itself if there are investment strategies that are useful there, or it can access the underlying liquidity from those tokens and use that and sort of bring it back at the end of the day. So another example here, which I think is the most exciting one, is Fjord Foundry, which is built on Balancer. Now, this, I think, goes to show sort of how Balancer is really in a different category compared to these other AMMs because of the types of liquidity pools that you can use and you can create on Balancer. So Fjord uses a primitive, a pool type on Balancer called a liquidity bootstrapping pool. And they use this to create the most popular platform for launching a token. So when a project is launching a new token into the market, they can use Fjord to conduct this sale in a way that is very fair, uses a like reverse Dutch auction style price discovery mechanism to find the right market price and to give all participants an equal chance to buy into the sale. It also provides protection against bots that sometimes can buy up an entire sale before other people get a chance. And also you can use Fjord to conduct a sale that actually raises capital in more than one asset. So let's say you're launching your token and you want to raise a treasury that consists both of ETH and stable. For example, you could actually have both of those being accepted by the pool, so that at the end of the day, you've raised capital in both. So let me just talk a little bit about liquidity bootstrapping pools. The way that this works and the way that this is possible is that an LBP is a Balancer liquidity pool that has the ability to change its weights over time while it's live. So if a pool starts where it's 80% ETH and 20% DAI, it can actually change over time and get to a completely different percentage distribution, such as 20% ETH, 80% DAI. If I had a lot of ETH that I wanted to sell, I could use a liquidity bootstrapping pool to do that. While the weights shift over time, it adjusts prices over time, and it incentivizes traders to trade against that pool and basically to move it into the balance that I want it to eventually get to. Okay. Actually, why not? Yeah, so you can see here on this graphic from Dune Analytics that we've had 299 LBPs on Balancer so far. Over 90,000 investors have participated in those. And yeah, there's been a lot of money raised and there's been a lot of volume for those projects. And Fjord is an awesome place to do that. So let's now dive into more of these pool types on Balancer with, of course, a lens toward understanding how these are useful for developers. So we kind of talked about how liquidity bootstrapping pool is useful for Fjord. They actually built a whole product based on that pool. But there are more. So first, a weighted pool. This is kind of like one of the more basic foundational liquidity pools on Balancer. These pools can hold anywhere between 2 and 8 tokens. They have fixed weights. The creator of a pool, which anyone can create one, can set those weights according to their specifications, 50-50, 80-20, 90-10, pretty much anything in between. And these can also hold, as I said, up to 8 assets. So one example of something cool that I've seen someone build using this product is there was a gaming project, and in their game, there were these in-game assets that players would earn by playing the game. Now, what the developers of this game needed to do was they needed to convert, they needed a way for players to be able to convert between one asset and another while they're playing the game. So let's say you earn a certain amount of like a certain in-game asset, and once you reach a certain level, you actually can level up to this other asset. There's a liquidity pool on Balancer that's actually working behind the scenes in this game, and those tokens are being traded in that way. So this weighted pool is sort of the enabling component of that functionality in the game. So a stable pool is another example. And this is a pool that holds 2 to 5 tokens that uses a stable swap formula for tokens that contain exact or almost exact value. So again, this could be DAI, USDC, USDT, but it also can be like wrapped Bitcoin derivatives like WBTC, RenBTC, SBTC. And you can also, this could be staked ETH derivatives as well. So the advantages of one of these pools is that for traders, there are tighter spreads and lower slippage. For liquidity providers, you earn a competitive yield with very little impermanent loss, which comes as a result of the way the formula balances between tokens of the same value. Boosted pool is something that I was talking about earlier. So in a boosted pool, what you have is a highly capital efficient liquidity pool that is not only serving its as an AMM where you can exchange any token for the other, but at the same time, it's lending its assets outside of the protocol into some other yield generating strategy. So the first boosted pool is the Aave, Balancer Aave boosted pool. And in that pool, you have DAI, USDC. I'm actually going to go back to that graphic. Somewhere around here. Yeah. So you have USDT and AUSDT. AUSDT is the Aave wrapped version of USDT. So you can see here that there's a percentage of the assets in the pool. More of the most of the USDT in this pool is actually deposited into Aave, and then the Aave A token is in this pool paired with USDT itself. This pool just needs to have enough USDT, USDC, and DAI to fulfill the demand from traders at any given moment. And the rest of the pool can be earning yield on Aave. So if you're a liquidity provider in this pool, you're earning from 2 different revenue streams. This is something very unique and innovative in DeFi that really isn't, I don't think is possible anywhere else other than on Balancer. So for an integrator, for a developer, boosted pools are interesting because they simplify the path for multi-pool operations. So you can keep everything within Balancer, and it also enables advanced applications. So out of 2 like weighted or metastable pools that contain, like for example, USD or Euro, you can create a whole Forex application that generates yield. And boosted pools, this first one is built on Aave, but we have multiple new ones coming out soon with other partners that are utilizing assets in balancer pools within their protocols to do really interesting things. So a metastable pool is a pool that is designed for tokens that are highly correlated in value, but not pegged exactly. So a great example of that is wrap staked ETH and ETH itself. Wrap staked ETH is since it's staked, it's earning a yield, and it has a different value from ETH. It's always going to have a slightly different value from ETH. But what this is a generalized stable pool that can hold these proportional assets. And another example of that would be like DAI and CDAI. So you have a predictable schedule of like what the valuation exchange rate is going to be between DAI and CDAI, because you know how on compound the value of deposited DAI is going to appreciate over time in order to account for the interest that it's going to earn. So if we talk about Lido as an example, so when users stake ETH onto ETH 2.0 with Lido, they get staked ETH in return. And through this pool, Lido makes it possible for anyone to get in and out of staked ETH very easily by just trading with a balancer pool instead of wrapping and unwrapping or staking and unstaking. So it's really the easiest way to do that. Lastly here, in terms of pool types, is something that we're currently developing right now that's coming out soon. It's called a managed pool. Managed pool is designed to optimize itself for sophisticated portfolio strategies and have more fine-grained control. One of the main products that you might build with a managed pool is an index fund. So a managed pool can hold up to 20 tokens, actually can hold more than 20 tokens. And you can set dynamic weights, you can set dynamic fees, and you have the ability to have an allow list of liquidity providers, or you have a manager of a pool who can implement a certain strategy for how that pool will invest its assets. And you can change the tokens and the allocations that pool has at any given time. Another thing about managed pools is that they have a feature called circuit breakers. So circuit breakers are designed to protect against like a black swan downside event. So DeFi it's in general doesn't really have that, but in traditional financial markets, when there's like a catastrophic crash, they have circuit breakers that can just kind of stop the markets from trading. So in a managed pool, a pool can at any point decide that it needs to stop trading because, let's say, for example, one of the tokens in that pool got hacked, there was some kind of breach, there's some kind of market catastrophe, a rug pull, whatever might have happened, that pool can actually just stop trading so that the rest of the assets in the pool are protected. So you can also, not only can you use these really interesting pool configurations on Balancer, but you can also create your own custom AMM pools. And I'll talk about a few examples of projects that have done this. So there's Element Finance, Sense Protocol, and Tempest Finance. These are three really cool projects that use Balancer to create their own custom AMM pools to make fixed rate markets possible. Gyroscope has built also their own AMM on Balancer, which serves to power a new stablecoin that they're releasing soon. And kind of the point here is not to dive into like all the complexity of how Gyroscope works, but just to show that on Balancer, there's a lot of room for building custom solutions and kind of configuring things based on the needs of your application as a developer. Cron Finance and XS Finance are two separate projects that are using Balancer to build TWAMs, which is a time-weighted average market maker. And the point of this product, it's kind of something that has been discussed in the space for a while, but no one really built it, and turned out that Balancer was the perfect place to do so. So the goal of a TWAM is to execute large trade orders over a longer period of time, so that slippage remains low. You can take trades and you can break them up into smaller pieces. So the liquidity required for each of those trades to be executed is less, and the slippage is smaller. So this is really important for large-scale investors or traders, because in DeFi, slippage is a huge issue when you're moving large amounts of capital. So that's kind of a tour of some of the really interesting things that are being built on Balancer. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the grants and perks that are available to developer teams. So these are a bunch of, actually some of the projects that I've already mentioned today. As you can see, these are recipients of grants. They've received grants from Balancer to build what they were building, and ended up building something really amazing. So for any developers that are building in DeFi and need some kind of AMM functionality, if there's some kind of swap feature involved in your application, it's a lot better to use a ready-made solution that works, that's secure, and that's battle tested, that you don't have to build from the ground up, rather than kind of doing all of that yourself. So highly recommend checking out our docs, and definitely apply for a grant if that's something that you want to do. We also have this really cool partnership with Certora, the guys who are here and are going to be speaking after me, I believe, which is the Balancer Certora Security Accelerator. So for projects that are building on Balancer, you get access to 2 weeks of manual code review by Certora, which these guys are awesome smart contract security firm. And this is something that is valuable to any developer in the space. And it's really hard to get audits especially when you're a small team in the space. So that's kind of what we wanted to do, is make this more accessible. So yeah, and through this program, you get the 2 weeks of manual code review. You get set up an introduction of Certora's formal verification prover, and you get $10,000 worth of credits for Certora's formal verification. You also get assistance from the Balancer integrations team on your code functionality on business logic. So it's really a good time to get involved. I'm going to quickly just talk a little bit about the SDK, because it's been recently revamped, and we've been getting really good feedback from developers on that. So Balancer.js is a JavaScript SDK that provides commonly used utilities for interacting with Balancer v2. BalPy is these Python tools for interacting with Balancer v2 in Python. Balancer SOR stands for Smart Order Router. This is a JavaScript off-chain linear optimization of routing orders across liquidity pools to get the best price execution. And then we also have 2 really cool community-led SDKs that have been supported by the Balancer Grants program. Delphi, which is in Ethereum, and also Rust. So this is an example of configuring the SDK to use mainnet subgraph and contracts. So SDK examples and tests can be run against a local fork. It's easy to hack and experiment without using real funds. And the SDK uses this very easy interface, the SOR, to find best swaps across all of the liquidity on Balancer, which is around $1 billion. And using the SDK, you can very easily add liquidity to any pool, and you can fetch and pre-calculate pool data, which is especially useful for front ends. And with that, we can end here. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take those. Thank you. Are we doing Q&A? Okay, great.
So this, yeah. So this might be slightly vague, and feel free to not answer this question. But when you spoke about there being a circuit breaker in a managed pool,
Circuit breaker, yeah.
circuit breaker in your managed pool
Yeah.
contracts, who acts as the circuit breaker? Who has that authority? And the larger question, I guess, is
So sorry, who has what? I couldn't hear you that well.
who acts as that circuit breaker? Is that
Oh.
again a decentralized role, or is that like one person or a group of a few people who act as circuit breakers and decide that it's time to shut down the market for the time being? And I guess the broader question is, where do you draw the line? In the beginning, you stressed about the importance of decentralization in finance, but we know that it's not a very practical thing. Somewhere we need to have some amount of centralization to get it to work properly. So where do you draw the line? If you can articulate a clear answer to such a vague question, it'd be good to hear.
Sure. So I think the second part of your question, to make sure I understand, because the audio is a little tricky, was that you're saying that while decentralization is great, like we still need some centralization as well. I agree. I think decentralization, depending on, it's very case specific for each project, like when it makes sense to be 100% fully decentralized. But I think that when you look at the DeFi protocols, like the exchanges and the borrowing and lending protocols that have been operating very smoothly throughout all of the insane catastrophes that have happened in the crypto space the last couple months, whilst you've seen a whole list of centralized platforms blow up and lose billions of dollars, I think it's a strong indication that the security and the transparency and the verifiability of a decentralized system is very superior to a centralized system. It doesn't mean that like there can't be any centralized components. Like it depends on the project and the system. That I don't want to give a one-size-fits-all prescription here, but to me it's very clear that like DeFi will eat CeFi. CeFi, these are the same issues that have gone on for so long in the financial industry, where there are risky lending decisions made, or like unethical decisions with customer funds, as what's been alleged in the case of FTX. Like these are things that are not possible in an immutable decentralized protocol. I think that with something as crucial as finance, we really need to transition, and I think that we are eventually going to transition from these human-led systems where there's a lot of room for either error or greed or bad decisions or misuse of trust, into systems that are fully open, fully transparent. I think it's just very clear to me that that's what we need in finance. And we don't need to have these billion-dollar sort of catastrophes in the future. I can talk a little bit about the managed pool circuit breakers. Again, these are like currently in development, so whatever we might talk about today can still kind of evolve and change, and it's not a final product right now. But what I can say is that the idea is to set some like programmatic guardrails to defend or to protect the pool against like a catastrophic situation. So for example, if you had a liquidity pool that contained Terra USD, and let's say you had Terra USD and you had like a few other stable coins that were all in this pool, and then Terra USD explodes, the price is suddenly dropping. What would normally happen in an AMM is that the AMM is programmed that when one token goes down, it sells the other tokens and buys more of that token that went down, right? So in that scenario, every dollar in that pool would be lost. If you have a circuit breaker in place, you can stop that from happening at some threshold that is like defined by the creator of the pool, so that in a black swan event, you can actually protect liquidity providers as much as possible.
Yeah, I get the reason for.
Does the circuit breaker plug into an oracle or something like that who can tell you what's really going on?
Right. Yes, it can be designed that way. Again, it's a work in progress. So I just wanted to give you a preview of the product. When it's done, I'll definitely have a lot more to share.
So we talked about the problems in centralized exchanges. We started seeing problems in the DeFi space also in decentralized exchanges. 2 days ago, Anchor's tokens was exploited, and they went to PancakeSwap, and millions of dollars was drained. Do you have those kind of safeguards in the balancer?
So I couldn't hear everything you said, but I think you were talking about.
Yeah, Anchor was exploited on December 1, December 1st, and then the fund was moved to PancakeSwap once again, DeFi DEX, and then it's drained from there.
So there's always a risk, like in an AMM, that if a token that is held in a liquidity pool gets exploited, that any liquidity provider that is in that pool, even the one that is providing the token that is kind of trading against that token that got exploited, can lose their funds. So smart contract risks is very real. We need teams like Certora to help keep the space safe as much as possible from those risks. Those are very real. So I think DeFi has its risks that are different from the ones in CeFi, right? So in DeFi, we have more security risk in terms of like code exploits. In CeFi, we have more like human risk, where you have a trusted person who's in charge of potentially billions of dollars in funds that belong to their customers, and we have to trust them to be ethical and moral and fair and honest. And like so many times in the past and just recently, that has not worked out well. So what I'm advocating for is trusting more in like secure code than in like an individual or even like a charismatic person who seems very trustworthy.
It looks logical that code will be a bit secure, but it also gives opportunity to hackers and everybody else who understands that everybody can go and exploit. Okay, in the previous case, it's like one person which is not able to do good, and we all get suffered because of that. But here, the information is available publicly. Okay, the kind of exploit happened with Anchor, anybody can do who understand better of Web3. So yes, we can say that we are shifting our security measures from direction A to direction B, but it's still saying that, okay, DeFi is the better or more secure than CeFi seems to be subjective.
Yeah, and I would also just mention, like in the case of the Anchor exploit, so Anchor got exploited, but the AMM, PancakeSwap, was not exploited, right? So, but the people who provided liquidity in Anchor on PancakeSwap lost their money. So I think in DeFi, there are kind of multi-dimensional risks that an investor has to consider. So the investor that bought the Anchor token and put it in and decided to be a liquidity provider on AMM took a risk in the security of that protocol, and unfortunately that didn't work out. And like I don't have anything negative to say about Anchor at all. That's not my point. My point is, even if a platform is very secure and not exploited, the assets from all over DeFi that can be held on that platform all have their own risks as well. So there's like really an exponential matrix of risks that most people, I think that you would agree, most people who are using these technologies don't fully understand all of those risks. Either they know that it's risky and they're doing it and they're taking the risk. Like some people like to gamble, but I think a lot of people are not fully aware of those risks. And in a decentralized ecosystem, it's really hard to provide good protection against those risks, because there is no one there really like holding your hand or like stopping you from buying something because it's not safe. It's very tricky.
Thank you for the detail.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And appreciate all your questions.